with your new GPU.
Yeah, starting with the new GPU because I am buying one next week.
Seriously.
Yeah,
And
I
what are you gonna do with the million old ones?
well, thankfully, I've only got two of those in the house. The rest of them are spread out across the world at this point.
Okay.
But I don't know how many of these I'm gonna buy. But I'm so excited enough to buy the flagship. Filed like the whole pre-order and everything for it.
Well, I am interested in them like in a long term. If I like ever get like a proper NAS, I'm probably gonna move this GPU to like a separate machine and have just a cheap Intel GPU for gaming.
Well, since we're talking about servers today and setting up NASes, I'll drop a hint for whoever's listening to the show right now, because the Intel A750 has that 8-pin PCI Express power connection, but it doesn't need it to run the encoder. You can just run it off of slot power.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's a 75-watt card.
Uh, well, then I would say can I have one, but I just remembered that I'm not sure the power rail on my PSU or my NAS can hold even that.
Oh boy. Oh, well, Bigpod, it's a good thing that we're talking about this episode today because we're telling everybody how to set up a NAS.
Yeah, like, and I'm not joking. There is so many things wrong with that computer. It's kind of sad.
All right, all right. Cue the show. Hey guys, welcome to No Talks Allowed. I am your host Josh, and if you hear this little motor in the background, on the microphone, I have this wonderful new kitten that is a cuddle cat. And in the meantime, I got Bigpod, who does not have a cuddle cat.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, and
But I
for you
have a
guys on
new
video,
NAS.
yeah, for you guys on a video, yes, I do have a little cat with me. She's hanging out. All right, so, Bigpod, we have some big news this week, and it has nothing to do with United Healthcare, and it has nothing to do with Intel CEO.
Good.
Yeah, because I'm more excited to talk about new Intel GPUs. These
Yeah.
are codename Battle Mage because
Ooh.
Intel's serious about this. They're saying that this one's a contender. They're saying
Yeah.
it's a contender, and you know what? I was impressed with Alchemist, the first generation Intel GPUs, with like how decent that GPU actually was. Because I was actually kind of scared when I bought that GPU. I thought it was going to be complete garbage. Nope. And in fact, it's been so good that I forgot that I was even running one.
Yep.
But so Intel, kind of dropped this on us like just a few days ago, and they have announced the new B series chipsets. They've only announced the 580 and the 570, so the flagship and the one that's just a step down. I imagine that they're going to have lower SKU ones coming out later, but the A7 or the B780 comes out next week. Like I think it literally drops on Thursday. So
Nice.
I think I'm going to take a trip over to the big city and buy myself one because I want it. I want it.
Nice.
And of course, they're saying that the only benchmarks that we have are the Intel provided benchmarks, so take it with a grain of salt. So Intel is saying that this GPU is faster than the NVIDIA RTX 4060
Really?
by like 10%. And it's only using 20 watts more of power to do it, which is impressive still.
Interesting.
Yes, it is more powerful, but it's impressive because I'm kind of curious to see how true that number actually is. Because the one
Yeah.
thing that I noticed with the A770 is how much more power efficient the GPU is compared to even my old even my old 5700 XT, the AMD GPU that I was using.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how power efficient they are, but the 3060 is kinda efficient as well.
Yeah,
Like,
it can be lighted for like the applications that we're going to be talking about in this episode. It doesn't necessarily matter how what GPU you actually use, as long as you know it has the features that you need for what you're doing. Most of
yes.
the time, it's just media acceleration, which NVIDIA has NVENC, AMD has AMF, but nobody ever uses AMF. They just use the FFmpeg library because it's just better. And then Intel has the beast that is QuickSync,
Yeah.
which
And I think on the DGPU they have something else as well.
it's still QuickSync.
Still QuickSync.
It's all QuickSync.
Oh.
That's just what they call the encoder.
Huh.
Yeah, it's called the QuickSync encoder, just like NVIDIA's NVENC and AMD's AMF. That's just what they
Okay.
call them. But it still supports AV1.
Yeah.
Well, basically, it supports all the codecs that like all the GPUs support nowadays. They're not the first to lay claims to it, but for media encoding, it supports AV1, HEVC, AVC, VP9, and XAVCH, which nobody ever uses.
What about X254? The
Very possibly yes.
that's
They did.
that's the normal MP4, like the standard MP4
Yeah,
one.
you know, like the standard video that you would watch
Yeah.
off of like the internet, like if
That
you're
we
watching
record in.
yeah, that we record in. It probably supports that because
Yeah.
I don't see why they wouldn't support it. Same with H.265,
That's the
but
X265. That's the HEVC.
yeah. But at the same time, we don't have a huge amount of information available for it yet. Like they've only posted like a couple slides at a talk. But
Okay.
if you look at the card design, it looks like it's going to be a pass-through cooler, just like the NVIDIA GPUs use. So I imagine that it's just going to be a nice running GPU that would work for like your desktop systems. Because the big benefit of the pass-through coolers is, you know, they help increase the airflow going through your case.
Yeah.
So I think that's a bit of a side benefit, but you know, we're talking about a GPU that's competitive with the NVIDIA option for half the price. So they have announced that it's only a $250 card. So hey,
Isn't
that's
like 3060 like 300 ish?
yeah.
So it's not half the cost. It's like 60, 50, $60. That's not half.
It still costs less.
Yes.
Which
But let's not overhype them that much.
I mean, I'm going to because you know I don't look at GPU prices.
You
Like,
just
I
buy
the
GPUs.
Yeah, I buy the GPU that meets my needs, and you know who does driver support better for free and open source software than even AMD does? It's Intel. So that's why I
Yeah.
bought the Intel.
Yeah.
Plus, I just wanted to be a savage and buy new hardware. But you know, in other news, there's this wonderful new operating system that released for the servers that all the YouTubers posted videos about, and we have opinions, Bigpod.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I can pronounce the name of this software. It's incredibly hard. Do, I think it's called Hex OS, something like that, right?
I think so as well, yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now, to my understanding, Hex OS is much like an operating system that you download and install on a computer, except that it's a server. So you have a wonderful web dashboard for it that you control, just like your TrueNAS, your Open Media Vaults, your Unraids, and all of them.
Yeah.
And you can set up your disk, you can set up file shares, probably some integrations with like Docker.
Yeah.
But Bigpod, you know a little bit more about how this thing's architected because you actually watch the YouTube videos, and I haven't done that yet. So let's get a bit of a deep dive on like how this thing actually is supposed to work for, you know, the home labber.
So, HexOS is made out of essentially the bottom layer, which is TrueNAS scale, so which is a Debian-based version of TrueNAS, FreeBSD storage server OS. But this is essentially a few packages on top of it that then connect with a dashboard which has some magic in it. That's my understanding of it. I haven't had hands-on with it, so I cannot be 100% sure, but based on what I saw watching a few YouTubers, it's essentially simplification of any other UI for NAS operating systems. But in this case specifically works on top of TrueNAS scale. Company behind it, Hashtag, is also in collaboration / partnership with the creators of TrueNAS IX systems.
Okay, so this thing's only in beta, so it's still subject to change. But it's basically a web GUI on top of TrueNAS, which also offers a web GUI.
Yes. If you're confused, don't worry, so am I, and so is Josh.
Yeah.
So basically, it's not just that it offers a GUI; it does some automated picking for you. Essentially, for one of the things it picks for you is the right Z rate for your disks. So if you have, let's say, 3 disks, it's gonna automatically pick, I believe, Z1 for you probably. So you have one spare disk or one redundant disk that it puts parity data on. Basically, options like that. Basically, the thing that you would normally agonize over in air quotes. That kind of the thing that it does for you. Also, it has like curated TrueNAS apps, which is basically Docker containers that have settings nicely in the GUI.
Oh, so that thing that Unraid does for you.
Yes, and TrueNAS does it as well for you. The only difference is in TrueNAS you have all settings exposed, while in HexOS you basically have none, at least at this point. And at this point there are, I believe, 3 apps that are like curated. Everything else you have to go into a TrueNAS interface to edit settings for, or even deploy.
Okay. And I see that they have some icons on their website here. And I see a jellyfin icon, an image icon, a Home Assistant icon, a Plex icon, and Ubuntu and a Windows icon.
Yes.
So they have like probably one-click installers for that stuff.
No. They have for at least in the videos that I saw, they had only for image and for Plex.
Okay, so
but they do have ability to do VMs.
Okay, so they got like some of the features in. So
yes,
they're getting started. So if I wanted to buy this, one thing that I noticed, there's a cost to this sucker.
Yeah,
it is not free.
It's $200 right now in early access, but according to the website, it should increase to $300 per server, lifetime license.
Yeah. So at this point, we're looking at this thing costs more than Red Hat.
Yes. But more importantly, even if you buy, you might not get an invite for early access. Yes.
Yeah, because they will continue in waves to test infrastructure stability and scalability. So this thing is operating through the cloud.
Yes, that's why it needs infrastructure. The dashboard is in the cloud. You do not have a dashboard on your server. You have a dashboard on their cloud, which is one software for everybody, and then uses some local trickery to detect your server and connect to it, I think.
But isn't the point that for a lot of people to step into like the market of setting up NASs for that offline access.
Yes. And the simple reality is to get that dashboard to be cloud only, which they say they're gonna have local dashboard in upcoming by the time 1.0 releases. They had to do way more work than it would take for them to make a local dashboard.
Okay.
And to make a local dashboard now, it would probably take them, if they actually wanted to, probably a couple of hours of actual work and nothing else, because I don't know that you can locally connect to what they're doing right now. Why not? Because they have to have some sort of an agent running on the system. You could connect to that agent locally anyway. I really don't get their idea. I do get their idea. It's so they can validate your license. I get it.
Yeah.
That's probably it. But
I mean, that's the same thing that like Proxmox does. It does a license validation check.
Yes, it does validation check. But my guess is they do the validation check on login or on when you add a server, which that's why they need cloud, so you cannot like have as many installs as you want. Because then if you unplugged it from or like if you blocked it from accessing their servers, you could have as many of them as you wanted. At least that's what I would think.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. And no, this is not a guide how to pirate. This is just me spitballing ideas. So why they wanted a cloud dashboard, at least for the start.
Well, the one thing that I'm finding here is that they don't even offer like a download button until you buy it. So
Yep.
And it looks like it's going through a Shopify store. Because this is a NAS software that Linus Sebastian from Linus Tech Tips invested money into. So of course he's going to have opinions on how things are ran.
Yeah.
He claims that he doesn't give feedback on anything, but they have like this popular YouTuber who runs this company that runs a lot of this stuff. They might just ask him, go like, "Hey, what's a good storefront?" And he'll just say what he uses, which is Shopify.
Yeah. And just in general, I have so many opinions about this. About this thing. It's I don't think it's worth the money they ask for it. It's worth some money, but not that much.
Yeah, so Bigpod, since you and I were having quite the conversation about this in the pre-show, which we'll have some news on pre-show, but I decided, you know what? Let's just talk about like setting up a NAS at home, because we talk about self-hosting and server stuff a lot on this show, and I know that we have talked about some things that you can do, but we need to start at the beginning, because when you set up when you're looking into like the self-hosting things, most of the time you're setting up a NAS first. Because the most basic kind of server that you can have is a traditional file server. It's a server that serves files.
Yeah.
That's what a NAS is. It's basically just storage that you access over the network. Network attached storage. So, let's talk about stuff that we do like. Because I am certain that you don't even know what kind of hardware you should buy for this. Well, first of all, there's a couple resources that you can make use of, right? Bigpod, I'm certain that you have heard of Serve the Home.
Of course I did.
Yeah, and for the listeners and the viewers, we have links to all the stuff in the show notes. Like, it's actually there. I remember to put it in for once. So, Serve the Home is a product review website. They also have a YouTube channel, but they review server equipment that you and I can buy. We don't have to come up with a Dell partnership and to buy it from a Dell retailer. This is stuff you can buy off of eBay, AliExpress, and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you can get this kind of hardware in your country, of course.
Yeah.
But since most of our listeners or like good chunk of listeners are from US. You don't have that kind of problem we in smaller parts of Europe have.
That's true. But the big thing that they talk about is they discuss like the internal hardware that these products are using. So Bigpod, if you need like a media encoding hardware support, you can go to this website and they will generally tell you, hey, this GPU has a media encoder, because AMD doesn't say which ones actually have media encoders on them. Same thing with NVIDIA. Sometimes they don't tell you either.
Yeah.
So these guys will tell you. The Intel N100 CPU has QuickSync encoder on it.
Yeah.
So they post about stuff about boards that you find left and right, or even like the little mini PCs. They went on like a whole tangent earlier this year on just the mini PCs for server use. So you can find all kinds of stuff. There's also a couple other websites that you can look into. Another one that's been fairly popular in the space is Perfect Media Server. Perfectmediaserver.com. It's ran by a guy named Alex that we can't really come up with like the last name reliably for. I'm certain that one of these days he might join us on the show. He might tell us how to say his last name. We'll find out. But he runs a YouTube channel called KTZ Systems. He's also a co-host on the Self-Hosted Podcast. A podcast that talks about self-hosting more than we do.
Yeah.
And this is a website that he runs, and it's talking about setting up like the media server, which is your next step up from the file server, because you hear about Plex and Jellyfin all the time, and you just think to yourself, that'd be pretty cool to have my own DIY Netflix, right, Bigpod? You like a DIY Netflix?
Sure.
Yeah. This is a website that gives you examples on how to set that up. And they'll even talk about stuff on more complicated topics like ZFS, Proxmox, Docker with Docker Compose, MergerFS, SnapRaid. They talk about that on this website. I don't know how great the content is, but it's a place to get started.
Yeah.
And of course, if that's still too fancy for you, we have the private blog, which this is posted by Brian Moses, who does kind of like this annual thing where he builds a new NAS and he writes a blog post about it. And, he talks about like his decisions with the hardware too, like why he picked up like the case that he picked up, the RAM that he's using, the motherboard that he's using. And you don't have to like build this same product. But if you look through his reasonings, it helps you develop like what you want to purchase in the future, right?
I wish I could build a NAS every year.
Well, you see, Bigpod, if you weren't always looking for jobs, you might be able to afford to do that. Because for ever since I've known you, you've either had a job or you've been looking for a job. It never seems to be consistent.
Yeah.
But, of course, now that you know how to find the hardware, Bigpod, it's time for us to talk about our favorite thing, software.
Yeah.
Because I know you're a software guy, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm the new guy for building a NAS, I don't want to like do the DIY thing that we've seen Josh do on his Home Lab series, where he builds up a Fedora minimal installation from nothing to a basic NAS. Where do I go?
Honestly, first of all, I would ask you, what do you need? Because at that point, the first question should be whether you actually need the DIY solution. Anyway.
That is true.
Because at that point,
you do have dedicated hardware you can purchase.
Yeah, I would just throw you at something like Synology and use that.
Yeah, Synology. Don't buy QNAP.
Yeah.
Just don't. It's not a good idea. Just buy the Synology. And then Western Digital, Asus Store. Those are good brands. Don't buy the D-Link one ever.
Yeah.
Just don't.
Well, if you would like to have like kinda not DIY hardware but DIY software, there's also 45 drives, although they are quite a bit more pricey than alternatives. But
Well, of
if
course,
you want,
but the benefit of the 45 drives system is that they will give you a server with this in a server case that you can mount on
Well,
your network
on
rack.
well in their 45 home lab lineup, they have also normal sized NASs for 4 and 8 drives.
Oh, but that's not fun. You want the HL15.
Yeah, like personally, I would go probably for HL8 or HL4s, but couple of them because I'm insane. We're gonna talk about the insane part later. But yeah, once you have hardware picked up, whatever it is, and you want to go DIY route on the software, you have few options like Unraid, or what I would prefer to point someone like that to is true NAS scale. Of course, because the true NAS scale is actually a well-made, powerful piece of software, you may have to open documentation at some point. It's not like you can just blind through the whole thing. Even I couldn't. And I am really good.
Lawrence Systems on YouTube has
Yeah.
lots of videos on TrueNAS. If you want to learn TrueNAS, that's where you basically go.
Yeah.
For like that. Level 1 Techs also posts some videos about the TrueNAS occasionally. But both of those are great resources specifically for like the ZFS file system.
Yeah.
Which is basically what TrueNAS is famous for.
Yeah.
Unraid does support ZFS. It also supports ButterFS, and Unraid is more for like the easy approach.
The really easy approach. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what Unraid is good for. It's built off of Slackware, by the way. If you
Oh
if
yeah,
you
of
ever wanted to
course.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is built off of Slackware.
While
And-
TrueNAS scale is built out of Debian.
Yeah. Now, the big benefit of Unraid, unlike TrueNAS, is Unraid takes a more appliance-style approach.
Yeah.
Which basically means that it's a set and forget. Whereas
Yeah.
TrueNAS, you can do that with TrueNAS, but you're also running TrueNAS, so sometimes you might want to go in there and mess around because they give you all the options.
Yeah, they give you all the options. But one thing that really, like all of this software, make me go a bit is the ability to do what is professionally or more technically known as hyper-converged infrastructure. That means you do NAS software and applications on the same machine, which works great if you have one server.
Yeah. And
also works great if you want to fix issues all the time. Because remember, if one of those applications takes its pants and start flinging whatever's in them around, your NAS and every other application will feel it too. That means bye-bye data, bye-bye that all what you're doing. Unless you fix it, of course.
Of course.
That's why I prefer to separate these two things. Of course, currently I can't because I have only one server. So I did some other things to separate. But again, we're going to talk about insanity that is my setup a bit later.
Yeah, so if for some reason we don't want to run TrueNAS, but we still want to step into like that open source operating system for our NAS, there is another option too, and that is Open Media Vault.
Yeah.
Which, if you're running stuff off of like a Raspberry Pi or one of those ARM systems, you're probably using Open Media Vault anyway. Which it is built off of Debian stable, just like TrueNAS is, and it supports all your stuff. The only caveat that Open Media Vault has is it doesn't support ZFS or ButterFS.
Yep.
But it does have amazing support for like your traditional Linux LVM logical volume management running on top of ext4 or XFS, and you get to pick basically any traditional Linux file system that you want. So there's a beauty to that because it's a bit more of an old school approach, but it's awesome. It's a good solution. And Bigpod, there is one alternative to all this,
Yes, and
and
that's running
that's the
Linux.
that is the savage approach. Because at the end
Well,
of the day,
well,
at the
I
end
wouldn't
of
say it's savage approach. We're gonna talk about the savage approach.
okay, yeah, we'll talk about the savage approach here coming up. But if you run a Linux distro, it actually doesn't matter which one.
Yeah.
You can use it as a server.
This is the
I'm
DIY
talking
of DIY.
Yeah, the DIY, because this is the beauty of Linux. It is a server operating system as well as a potential desktop. So you can set up like Solus OS as a server if you really want to, because they have KVM enabled in their kernel use, and they offer Virt Manager for your virtual machines. They even ship Podman and Docker in the repository, so you can use that as a server. You can make use of Manjaro if you want, or you could be boring and just use Ubuntu or Ubuntu server. It doesn't make a difference. So it's perfectly acceptable to actually run a graphical environment on your home server.
Yeah, if you want to do it.
There's a lot of hate that people have for it, but if you want the graphical approach, you can do that. And I have done that in the past, where I just run a graphical environment on my server, and it's like whatever. I just have the monitor turned off all the time, but it's there whenever I need it.
And I just thought of another approach, and this one is approach of sadness and tears. If you really do not have other option, or you just do not want to toy around with, you can also use Windows. Windows has, even on the desktop version, has abilities to share folders and create very basic RAID functionality. So if you really need to do things, Windows is still an option.
It is an option. Lighted, you probably don't want it running like your massive multi-petabyte array.
Yes.
But, if you're only sharing like a few terabytes, it'll probably be fine. And heaven forbid.
It can be part of your desktop, after all.
Yeah.
That's one thing. If you need, I don't know, for someone to just dump files onto, let's say, a family member, to dump pictures from their phone onto some other storage, you can always run SMB on your Windows desktop computer. Granted, you have enough storage, because those images can get pretty sizey these days.
Yeah, and if you want like the cool thing that you can do when you're taking like the super manual approach like this, by the way, if you're using a file system like ButterFS and say you enjoy running Steam, you could download your entire Steam library, mount that on your NAS, mount that as a local folder on your computer. Yeah. In my case, take a ButterFS snapshot of that, of the Steam library, mount that snapshot as a writable volume on another computer. Now you don't have to download your Steam games again. And because one computer updates, as long as you remember to set up your snapshots, you have synchronized saving and synchronized updates.
Now, before we go into how did I do it, Josh, how do you do the nesting?
So, right up until recently, I was recording a series of videos called the Home Lab series for my YouTube channel. They're not viewable anymore. If you want some information on that, I dropped the reasoning for that in the pre-show. So, which
you need to be a Patreon. But if I forget to update the new card with YouTube channels, yeah, it's gonna still be there.
Yeah, it'll still the channel's still there. It just doesn't have any videos on it right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, I take the traditional Linux system administrator approach to it, sort of, where I am making use of Podman to run my containers and making use of KVM to run virtual machines, but it's basically just like the primary server is just a Fedora minimal installation, and then I have a secondary backup server that's just running Debian stable because I haven't switched it to Fedora yet. I started with this Fedora minimal installation, I set up an NFS file share because that's just what I use for my NAS is just NFS, and I'm running 5 containers on it right now. A Doku Wiki instance because Wiki be Wiki, a Libre Speed instance so I can test my local network performance. From using devices like my phone, which I can't set up a iPerf on, and couple other options like that. And it's probably going to be expanded more now that I don't now that I'm a little bit more free about it because I can do that. And I do have a couple more insane setups too that I'm not going to go into too many details, like a DIY weather station and so on. I'm not going to talk about that because it's been a while since I did that project, and I don't necessarily remember all the details about it. But it still works.
Okay, now for the insane one.
Okay,
So,
let's hear this, Mr. NTFS shill.
there is no NTFS involved. So,
Oh, okay.
first off, to talk about like the server. I only have one server at the moment, so I go against my own hopes and wishes because, well, I only have one server.
You don't have the backup server I do?
No, I don't even have a compute server. I wish I had a compute server separately. So what I've done is I've taken my old desktop, which is now a server, and installed Proxmox on it. Proxmox is a virtualization OS based on Debian.
And that's generally like what hardware-wise. That's basically what I'm using too. Is just old gaming computers that I built.
Then I have a singular VM on it, and that VM is Ubuntu 2404.
Okay, so the
latest
latest
LTS.
Or and Ubuntu LTS release. That's fine.
The latest LTS. And inside it I have installed what is known as Ceph. It's essentially meant to be a multi-server storage system.
Okay,
but
that's sounding awful enterprise of you.
I have it set up in a single node cluster mode, so I can run a single node. Then that has all my drives passed in as virtual drives, so I can use as much storage of them as possible instead of just whatever is the common size of them. And at this point, I do not care about redundancy because, well, if the computer dies, it dies. I'm done, and it's gonna die soon anyway. So I don't care about redundancy at this point. And so I can use all the storage I have available, all 3.5 terabytes. There's a bit of it unused so I can have mass storage for a VM/containers. Then, beside it, because again I have only one server, I have a couple of containers. These are Proxmox containers, not Docker containers. They use certain same kernel principles as Docker containers. I run things like Samba and things like my own personally written data management software, which basically manages what goes on to high-speed array and what goes on to the slow array. High-speed array is a single SSD. And slow-speed array is the 3 hard drives I have. And what I want to do one day is move those containers that are like Samba and data management. I want to move them into a separate server. That's my goal. So compute, as it's called, to be on separate system, because as I said, hyper-converged infrastructure is not a good idea.
It's not the best idea, but if it's the option that you have, you might as well use it.
Yeah.
And I'm moving that direction myself eventually. I have like the whole spare server chassis. I'm just waiting to build a new computer. That way, I can have a new server.
And if you're gonna go, I recommend going a similar route I did. If you're going for a full DIY approach and you don't mind tinkering and stuff like this, I recommend going the approach I did to separate your storage from your compute as much as possible. In this case, it is separated by a barrier of a VM, and hopefully in future by a barrier of an Ethernet cable.
Which, and there's logic behind this, right? Because what happens with like you're running something on your compute server, and it completely taxes your compute server, like to the
Yeah.
point where it's just like completely pegged out using all the CPU cores, the GPU is completely taxed, and to say you want to access a file. Well, in the case of like some of these weaker NAS solutions, like your TerraMasters and so on, there's not a whole lot of performance coming out of CPU. So
Yep.
when that thing is fully cooking, and you want to grab like a quick video file off of your NAS and put it on like your desktop computer, you're going to immediately see like that network output be a little taxed.
Yeah.
And so there, and it's not necessarily like the power efficient solution either. But one, and so I guess we should probably talk about the power efficiency.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember that
Welcome
like
to Europe. We need power
yeah.
efficiency to matter.
Yeah, I mean,
Sadly.
I kind of track it too, but then again, that's just because my building's electrical system is kind of whacked. But anyways, uh, so in general, yes, if you're using a desktop computer, it does require power to run. The big benefit is that it idles.
Yeah.
So you might see like this big powerful computer with a 1,000 watt power supply in it, using the big NVIDIA GPU that sucks up like 90% of that power supply with the highest tier CPU. If it's just sitting there idling,
It could be
it's
using
not using all 1,000 watts.
maybe one, even if it's running full tilt, it's not necessarily using all the power.
That is true, and it. So that's a big benefit. Also, you can just turn it off too.
Yes.
And if you want to automate that, look at Wake on Land, because
Yeah.
it turns out more and more like mid to premium tier consumer motherboards just support Wake on Land.
My old desktop, that's not my server, supports Wake on LAN, and it's like low end motherboard. Of course, it's an ASRock, so that could be
Yeah.
the reason.
Yeah, and if you want to go like down the rabbit hole of like networking, you will learn the coolest things that you can do with Wake on LAN. Because so my network stack at home uses a TP-Link Omada system, and it can track when devices are using my internet connection, and it can use that information to ping magic packets to different devices. So I have devices that automatically go into a suspend state, and if I start using my internet, they turn back on.
Interesting.
Right?
Well,
It's really cool.
what I do is I had or what I used in past when I needed some data from my server. All I did was connect into my normal PC and run a command, which sent out a magic packet to the server, because I kept server offline when I was not at home, aka at school.
Yeah, and delving down like the things that you can do with Wake on LAN is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you can just have like a controller system, like a Raspberry Pi, Pi Zero, that basically runs off of like USB micro B port, so it only uses like 5 watts of power. So basically, it just sips power, and you can just run that as like your controller, and it can just turn on the servers on and off on a schedule. Because it's not like you need this. It's not like you need your compute and file servers running when you're not in a situation that allows you to use them.
Yeah.
Because I looked. I have a dedicated backup server. This is a primary example, right? This server sits back and does basically nothing. unless it is from 2 in the morning to 6 in the morning. Then it's actually doing something. So why does it need to be turned on? And you can use Wake on LAN to off of your dedicated controller to have the computer shut itself off at 6 in the morning every single night, and then
Yeah.
have your controller just ping it to wake it up. And
Yeah.
that it's one of those things that you can take as an approach to saving power. Ultimately, if you want to save on power, just don't buy the device to begin with and just continue using the cloud. But
True.
let's talk about reasons of why you would want to do the self-hosting approach.
So
And the big thing is privacy.
yeah, and to get away from cloud.
Yeah, because I don't know about you, Bigpod, but I love YouTube, like what it's done for like
Yeah.
just small content creation and everything. It is much worse now, but I like the fact that it's an available resource, and I can just go to it and use everything. But I don't know if you've noticed this, just like this year specifically, but it's just like everything about YouTube has been slowly getting worse. Not like content wise, but like usability wise. Like,
I didn't notice.
yeah. But what if I told you that you could just archive all your YouTube videos on your NAS and just have access to the videos anyway?
Yeah.
And you can just automatically set up like downloads for the individual channels that you subscribe to on your server. That way, you just have those videos automatically.
We're walking in on like weird waters right now. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
we're not gonna go into like how you do that, but just to
Yeah,
let you know, YouTube does support RSS.
that's also true.
Yep.
But there is another reason you might want to use like a home server NAS type thing. It's if you want to centralize your data.
Yeah. And so, like, say that you like have a large digital music collection that you've just been ripping off of CDs since like the early 2000s, and you just want to keep those files around because you might not have the CDs anymore, but you have so much data that it'll just cost you a lot of money to upload all this stuff to a cloud solution, like the Amazon cloud storage or Backblaze cloud storage and all that. You might want to put all that on like a home server,
Yep.
because the big like we said, the big benefit of the NAS is that it is just a file system.
Or if you have, let's say, images you took and you want to keep them like centrally stored, so from any device you can access them. Or same with your like normal files. You have 3 computers, or you sometimes work off of your tablet? You
Yeah.
can connect to your NAS and have all your data that you have access on your laptop, on your desktop. Now have access from your tablet, your phone, or any device you want, or even device you do not own, if you can establish a connection into your NAS.
Yeah. So like I said, what I do with my Steam library, you can do with
Yeah.
like I can mount like my Steam library, my media collection, everything from not just my desktop computer, but from like any computer that I point the NFS traffic to, as long as it's on a network that I have the server communicating through. Because you can set up remote access if you really want to. I'm piping all my remote access
Yeah.
through a VPN, so it's not open to the general internet. But as long as I connect to my VPN server, I have access to my stuff.
And I kinda have my NAS because of that, but kinda not. So the reason I have a NAS is because I run now Linux, but I still edit with Windows software. I can easily edit inside a VM of Windows, but I cannot do the rendering inside Windows VM because it takes extraordinarily more time because I don't have any kind of hardware encoding in there. So for the 30 to 40 minutes of the day, once a week, when I need to render, I can reboot to that Windows install I have and render in that. And the great part is I don't need to even copy files or do anything like that, because I have a completely separate server that stores the video files, and it's in the same place, whether it's in my VM or in my install that only does the rendering and nothing else.
Yeah, and if you get really, really, really special sauce with it, Bigpod, and you eventually set up like a dedicated compute server, one really cool thing that you can do is just have a specific folder on your NAS that you just drop your save file into, and all the data that goes with it, and the server will run something somewhere that automatically watches that folder, and every time you put a file in there, just renders.
That's part of the final form.
Yeah, and Premiere Pro is not the only video editing solution that supports that. Most of them can actually just do that themselves.
Yeah. Well, the plan in the final when I can build myself a couple of compute servers is one of them will have an NVIDIA graphics card, and it will run exclusively Windows. And it won't be just for rendering. It will also be my exclusive remote gaming station. So I can play every game from my desktop, or if I'm gonna at that point switch to a basically a thin client. Check out our last episode with Martin Wimpress to know how thin clients work and all that. And what I can then do is have that machine render, and I can even edit on it, and never run Windows on my main systems.
I have been toying around with the idea of setting up a dedicated Steam server that just I could play all my Steam games through the Steam's Remote Play feature. Because I've been toying around with that a little bit more lately, even though. And if I ever get into like bigger location where I can justify having like a separate room for just the games, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, I've been using Steam Remote Play in combination with their Steam Link application for quite a while now to play games on my laptop, and when I was still running Windows as an OS on my desktop. When I wasn't at home and I needed to at least do preparations for edit, and sometimes I also did the edit, I did it on my laptop, which ran Linux, but Windows device was at home, kilometers away.
But hey, you could do it. And sometimes that's just worth it, because I remember back in the days of me messing around with TeamViewer, where I could fire up TeamViewer and connect to my computer at home from my phone and play like World of Warcraft, because that's just the thing that I did.
Yeah. I remember such things that we did back in the day.
It was not a good experience, but Steam Remote Play is just so much better. It's almost like if you're on a fast enough network connection, it almost feels native.
Yeah, I was like on mobile connections, so that means through a mobile broadband, LTE or 5G. I don't know which one I was using. I was playing World of Warcraft on the desktop that was right here, and I was at a pub drinking beer.
Yep. So I think we could probably wrap it up there for the day. Yeah. So tell you what, if you would like to hear about this pre-show that we mentioned a little bit, I want to step up here first, right? So I want to experiment a little bit more with our premium feed that you've heard of us talk about. And our premium feed you can access to. You can get access to by going to patreon.com/notuxallowed. One of these days we'll have like a title card for that right here. Right, Bigpod, right?
Patreon has its own card already.
Hey, there we go. We already have that. It's been a while since I watched like our own video content. I'm sorry, I just listened to the audio. But anyways, so if you go there and sign up with any of our Patreon tiers, you'll have access to our premium RSS feed. That's typically a higher quality audio, but some people just don't notice the difference between audio fidelity. So I wanted to put something extra on there. So today, for like the first hour and a half that basically I sat down for my computer, I just fired up OBS and I just started recording a whole pre-show thing, and
Yeah.
you know, it it and it's going. The goal of that is from start to finish. It's going to be a completely raw feed,
Yeah.
as in Bigpod's just going to take the two recordings, stitch them together, and just hit post.
And for those of you who will just want to listen to episode, I'll be uploading them separately, so that people who just want to listen to the episode can listen just to the episode.
Yeah, and if we ever pick up sponsor segments, maybe that standalone episode will just be sponsor free as an alternative option.
The premium
hey,
feed will always be sponsor free.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? If you are a potential sponsor, or we said something that you objectively disagree with on the show, like maybe you're a HexOS developer and you have opinions, you can send us an email. You can send us an email to contact@tuckspace.com. We've actually received a happy email, Bigpod.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And if you read it, it wasn't necessarily a happy email, but he was pointing out that apparently I was a robot in the last episode that I was on.
Yeah.
But of course, if you want to hang out with our community, we have a Discord server. There's a link to that in the description. You can go there. And of course, if you want to find us individually and shout us, well, for one thing, I still have a YouTube channel. There's nothing there right now, but
I have also have a YouTube channel. There might be more stuff on it sooner rather than later.
There might be more. Like I gave him a video series idea that he needs to be working on. Like when he's done it dealing with this.
Yes.
But if you want to shout us, we have these wonderful links right here. These are our Fediverse IDs, as in from your threads or from your Mastodon instance. You can type these addresses in there, and you can see everything that we post on these services. I'm very active on the Fediverse. I'm more active on the Fediverse than I am on Twitter. So
I'm not active anywhere.
Well,
I just watch both.
But hey, you know what? You've probably read my post on there.
Probably didn't.
Oh, okay. So you can go to us there. That is episode 34 of No Tucks Allowed.
Yep.
We have a big live stream coming up at the end of the year. It is only a couple weeks away at this point, and I haven't tested the little box. I need to test the little box, but I haven't tested it yet. But this little box is supposed to be capable of running for a solid week a complete live stream to the No Tucks Allowed YouTube channel, of where Bigpod and I are going to do this the same way. We're not going to sit there for a solid week and stream. That's just stupid. But we're going to post like replays of previous episodes, some of our own content, and
primarily mine.
Occasionally, we might even hop in there, and we'll do like
most of the time. Either one of us will be there or both. But in the downtime, there will be the replays. So be ready to watch the old TV style where during the night you had the replay of whatever happened during the day.
Yeah, and of course, during that whole time in there, we're gonna try to like be active in the chat.
Yeah.
Just in general on there, because I'm on winter shutdown, but I might just be cooking dinner and I might just be hanging out in the chat room.
Or if it's New Year's, I might be watching fireworks, but still saying Happy New Year's to all of you in the chat.
But of course, Bigpod, I have a lot of people telling me that I need to be playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Yes.
I've never played this game.
Yeah.
And it's been sitting in my Steam library for almost a year now, and basically just untouched. So, and I know that it supports multiplayer.
Yeah.
So maybe you and I can like run through the campaign. It is a whole week after all. We could probably get through the whole campaign in a week, right?
Most definitely, we can get through the whole campaign, on a week.
Oh, there we go. We can do that. And of course, we might have like some other special things too. Like obviously there's going to be a community there. If enough people are there, I don't mind spinning up a Super Tux kart server, and we can do some Super Tux racing because I will win.
And I lose or not be there. Those
All
are two
right.
options.
So we got that coming up. It is starting the day after Christmas. I'm just going to say that right now. December 26th is when we go live. I don't know the
Yeah.
time of day yet because I haven't figured that out. But we are going live the day after Christmas, and we are not shutting off that stream
To at least
until
the 2nd of January.
yeah, the 2nd of January.
At least.
So, at least. And
And if lots of you join us and subscribe and like and join on Patreon, we might convince Josh to allow us to do it for longer and
No
make him
Tux
suffer
TV.
make him suffer after work.
No Tux TV.
Then we probably should have some advertisers.
Probably. Maybe. One of these days. But hey, you know what? That's a wrap for the show. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.